everyone, I'm Alanah. That's Yusuf. Yusuf, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name's Yusuf. You may know me from working at Ubisoft or hosting Ubisoft Forward or things like that. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
You nailed it.
Sure, those are the things that I do for a paycheck.
And we are defined by our jobs. Excellent.
Yes.
That is Nuha. Who are you?
Hello, I'm Nuha. I am a narrative designer in the games industry. I'm currently working at Respawn on the next Star Wars Jedi game. Before that, I worked on a VR game at Archaeact and also worked on Far Cry 6 at Ubisoft.
Hell yeah. And then below me are two people who've been on the channel before. We have Tamor. Who are
Hi,
you?
I'm Tam. I'm managing editor of GameSpot and general internet troublemaker. That's my official title.
At least he knows.
Yeah.
And then we have Rami right here. Rami, what's your introduction?
I am an independent game developer / industry human.
Yeah, he wrapped it up pretty well.
That's kind of it.
Yep.
It's good. Solid.
I have gathered all you lovely people here today to talk about something that has nothing to do with the games industry, unless you want it to. Everyone on the panel today is Muslim, and happy Ramadan, everybody. I basically wanted to take this opportunity to, use a video game channel mostly to talk about what Ramadan is, what it actually means. Like, what do you have to do and why, essentially, for anyone who isn't kind of familiar. So that's my first question. How do you describe what's going on right now?
I think Tam had like the best explanation I've ever seen of Ramadan.
I was going to say that.
Did
exactly.
I? Oh, I don't even know which one you're talking about because I've been talking shit.
It was the lore drop.
Oh, yeah. I describe Ramadan as the celebration of when the month where all the good Muslim law dropped, which is effectively a way to gamify the idea that the Quran was revealed to mankind. But yeah, and I described it as imagine if Vati dropped all his soul's law in 1 month, which is like, it's true. Am I wrong? Tell me I'm wrong.
No. I think my favorite other analogy you made is that it's like double XP month.
Yes, it's double XP month. Yeah. So if you're doing good stuff, you do it this month, you get double XP. But if you do bad stuff, it's like a massive debuff on you, because the idea is in the month of Ramadan, like all the evil kind of like temptations and the things in the world, or the spirits or whatever they may be, the evil angels that are out there that tempt you on a normal year are locked away for the month. So anything you do that is shitty this month is entirely on you. You did this yourself.
It's just you.
Yeah, so you are the reason this happened. No, you can't blame no evil spirits on this. It's you.
So you feel really bad about yourself. Even if you say a swear word or anything, you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
You've seen my Twitter. I say any swear word on Twitter, and it's hard not to swear on Twitter. Like, for the record, that's hardcore. I just immediately go astaghfirullah. I like this, like a way of saying like sorry, effectively.
Yeah.
So you do try not to swear the entire month.
It's hard. You need to really to do a good Ramadan. You probably have to delete Twitter, otherwise you're just not going to make it. It's just.
I think the thing I always go back to, in that everyone knows about the abstaining from food and drink, during the day. Until sunset. But the thing that I think always gets slept on and is the thing I try to be much more cognizant of, because honestly, when you've been doing this as long as I'm sure we all have, you just kind of get used to the no food and water, and we all build in various ways to cope with it. But to me, it is that part of practicing patience and kindness and goodwill towards others. And not having immediately negative visceral reactions, or when you just trying to remember that even if you do, just calm down, take a deep breath. You don't need to get upset at someone. Like, we're all just human beings out here trying to do our best, and that just because I'm fasting and someone who's not fasting, complains that they're hungry, that's fine. It's okay. Like,
is that fine? Because I make everyone feel incredibly guilty.
I used to do that, and then. I'm really trying to be like a more like mature, better version of myself.
See, that's the difference there. That's the difference between you and Tam. Tam is just like, no, let's go.
No, I'm out here starting fights. Like this morning, I was in a meeting with a colleague, and she was like, "Oh, I just need to get this coffee down me," and I just like whispered into the mic, "It's all right for some of us, isn't it?"
So to back it up, Ramadan is the 9th month of the Muslim calendar. It's a lunar calendar, so our months are not actually like solar months. So every time the new moon starts, it's a new month. And when it hits the 9th month, that's the month of Ramadan. And Ramadan is not a special word or something. It's kind of like saying September.
Oh.
It just happens to be that September is a really, really like specific month where certain rituals happen. And during Ramadan,
is it different in different places? Because I know that there are some places where, like, if it's winter, they have less sunlight.
right?
How does that
during
work?
Ramadan, from the first light of day, and I think technically it's defined as the moment where you can distinguish your shadow from the darkness, but the
Ooh.
first light of day, until the moment the disk of the sun sets fully under the horizon, Muslims have to abstain from consumption, which includes any sort of consumption. So food, drink, sex, if people smoking, which is always fun to watch Muslims try to stop smoking in the 3 weeks before Ramadan. Also coffee, really funny. Like Muslims that are really like big coffee drinkers, you can just tell like about 3 weeks in advance when they get a little like shaky. It's like, oh, they're getting ready. That goes from the new moon to the new moon. So, I don't know how it is for y'all, but for me, it was always, as a kid, sitting in front of the TV, listening to this old imam guy, the sheikh, the scientist person going, and this guy just keeps talking. And he's going to announce whether they saw the new moon, so whether you have to start fasting tomorrow or whether you get an extra day before Ramadan starts, because it's really dependent on whether the moon gets seen, the new moon. And this guy just like it's like a talent show, one of those voice whatever shows where the jury already knows who they're gonna announce as the winner, but they're just gonna drag it out as long as possible. That's what it feels like.
It's like when the anime catches up to the manga and they need to buy time. And it's just like, we gotta kill time quick.
Yeah, we're just gonna talk about how this whole thing happened.
But so is that a global announcement?
No, so
Okay.
it's per community.
Okay.
Yeah, so there have been times where there was a new moon sighting in the Middle East, but not necessarily in on the West Coast here in California. And
Interesting.
That the days might not necessarily line up. It also means that, like Rami said, you don't know exactly when Ramadan is going to start until the night before, and you don't know exactly when Ramadan is going to end until the night before.
Exciting.
It's just brutal.
Oh, oh, I took that a very different way. Clearly, I've not done it.
I mean, it's both, but after 28 days, if you're like, oh, I eat tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because at the end of Ramadan is our biggest celebration of the year, right? Like Ramadan is already sort of a festive communal thing. So it's already like a really good time for Muslims. But then Eid at the end is bonkers. Like it's just food, it's feasts, it's going to family and getting this, at least in Egypt, we do something called Idea, which is where you go to family members or friends of the family and you basically get a little monetary gift.
Huh.
Right? So I would go around and get some money.
Yeah.
And then go buy video games.
Hell yeah.
Right.
That's quite interesting. What are your other experiences? What do you guys do on Eid?
Well, eat lots of sugary food.
Yeah.
Like lots of sugary food. There's morning prayer, right? Eid prayer, which is a longer prayer. We go Ardiyah, so we go around to family, friends, and get money. And we usually get new clothes. Just like nice new clothes.
Do any of
How
you
about
have
you?
different experiences? Yeah.
Mine are like is everyone else here Egyptian?
It's just Rami and I.
Nuha, what about you? Where are you from?
I am Syrian.
Okay, Syrian. So Pakistani, I'm interested in hearing what Syrian Eid is like, but Pakistani Eid is like, so we'd wake up, I'd do go straight to prayer, come back and then do like a little prayer that is like small amount of family, like the house prayer basically, which is like it would be me, my mom, my brothers, my sister, and my dad, and sometimes like my granddad would show up, and then we'd go around to individual houses and then also like do similar stuff there. That's when we were younger. Nowadays, as an adult, I'll do like the main prayer, and I think that like weird going around here everyone's houses is like a cultural thing more than a actual like Islamic Muslim thing. And as I've grown up, I've like learned to separate Pakistani cultural practices from Islamic practices. And like since becoming my own adult, I've just been like, nah, I'm not doing any of that. Cool, everyone. I'm doing the main prayer and I'm done now. So that I'll like do that and then just bounce. And like my Eids are always, this is gonna sound really anticlimactic, real boring, like super boring. Like because most of my family are super boring as well. So I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna stay home. Me and my brothers are gonna hang out at home. We're gonna eat food and we're just gonna play some video games and then we'll probably just bounce.
So what I'm hearing is we're gonna invite you to a Arab like.
he already has an invitation. I'm hosting an Eid potluck.
Nice. Done.
I'm excited, but I also have to like, because my parents or like my mom specifically is like, no, we're gonna do like a video call Eid together. And I'm like, somehow you have made Eid worse for me.
I mean, I can kind of relate too, just because I don't have much family here in Canada. Like all my family is mostly still in Syria. So when it comes to Eid gatherings, they're really small family gatherings. And then they kind of like slowly as we got older, we started kind of drifting away in a sense. So my Eids are basically just hanging out with my close family, like my parents and my sister. We go to the mall and we go get food and eat out. We go to usually get like brunch somewhere. Like it's very basic stuff. But like we do it together and we just make it feel special. But it's not as big and grand as it used to be when we were in Syria, when we had like all of our family members and we rotate between different houses throughout the days. And it's very different, even just the festivities there as well. Like everything's lit up. There's just a different vibe going on over there as well.
I think that's really easy to sort of miss, is that Ramadan is the biggest event of the year. For the Muslim world. I mean, this is like
for millions of people.
I'm glad you said for
billions.
Muslims.
Yeah, billions, you're right.
I'm glad you said for Muslims, because I was about to say, actually, I think you'll find the biggest event of the year is E3. So, I don't know.
R.I.P.
True. But E3 is dead this year. For this year, this 1 year, it's Ramadan. Otherwise, it's the second most important thing of the year, right?
For sure.
But you know, it's literally the biggest like life changes and especially in the Muslim world. Like most of us live in the West, but in the Muslim world, this is like world defining. Like days shift into the evening, right? People wake up later, work starts later, or there is no work. There's celebration. There's lights in Egypt. We have like these little lanterns called fawanis that like hang everywhere. The mosques are lit up in green light or in colored lights. At the end of the day, so at the start of the day, we have a meal called suhoor, which is or different ways of pronunciation between all of us probably, but Arabic and Islam exist around the world. So a lot of words come from one place and then sort of like get dialected around the world. Suhoor is like a morning breakfast, usually sort of a family meal if it is within family context. It can be quiet, but it's usually sort of like do you all have that experience of waking up really early and your parent is like telling you like, Yalla, suhoor, let's go suhoor. And you just hear like the most absurd sentences because your brain isn't awake yet and you're just sort of laying in bed going like...
But if you miss it, you can't eat, right?
Yeah.
So are you really particular? Like, do each of you have meals that you choose to eat for that morning to keep you going all day?
Oh man, I've been.
I'm
on
sure
a
this is like a
that.
question that you've been asked before, but
so
I don't know.
I always relate Sahur to like that feeling of like if you ever had to like wake up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom and you're trying not to be like to fully wake up so that you can go back to sleep more
Yeah.
easily. It's that, but you're trying to eat a meal.
Yeah, it is. So I used to eat like when I was when I was younger, I used to eat like really heavy meals. Like we'd have like this thing called paratha, which is like it's like a naan bread, but like very oily, and I'd have it with like a curry, and it messed me up every single time. Like I'd wake up feeling like refried ass, and like every night I would carry on doing it. And then as I got older, I was like, I'm going to be smart about this and just start eating, like toast or like oatmeal. And then I got even older when I was like, I just don't want to get up. So I just like I like open my eyes, chug some water, and then go back to sleep. And I'm like, I'll deal with this. I'll deal with the consequences later. And let me tell you, I am dealing with those consequences right now.
Yeah, it sounds like middle you had the right balance there and kind of threw that out the window. I would do the same thing, I think, though.
I prioritize sleep. I was like, I'm good.
I'm the same exact way, Tam. I wake up and I drink water because otherwise, I honestly, and Rami and I have talked about this, I will overeat during Ramadan. Mm-hmm. It's actually far easier for me to do that because you spend, 16 hours awake not eating, and then by the time you just want to indulge.
It's almost like you binge eat by accident.
Yeah,
exactly.
My mom. And then you sleep, which is even worse because your metabolism is just like I just ate a whole bunch of stuff. Now my body is going to do nothing.
Yeah.
For the next like 8 hours, and then I'm going to eat again.
Yeah.
And I'm going to not eat.
It's really hard to stay awake after you've eaten too. Like you just crash. And you just want to go to bed immediately, but I'm like trying to keep myself awake to like no, or else I'm really gonna like feel it in the morning. But you can't. Your body just doesn't want to do anything afterwards.
Every time I have Chipotle, I pass out.
Exactly.
I have a tweet draft that says, "Can science Twitter tell me why every time I eat Chipotle I have to take a nap?" And I think it's the salt. I'm not sure.
Now imagine that if that was every single day with any meal. Like, it's wild. My mom always My mom always used to say it to me like before we'd start eating. She'd be like, "Remember, your eyes are bigger than your stomach right now."
Yeah.
And it's just like a good way of saying it. The other thing is like technically you're supposed to. Like after you're breaking your fast and having that meal, you're supposed to go to the mosque and pray Tarawih, which is like Tarawih prayers they're like the Lord of the Rings of prayers. They go on a really long time, and a lot of it like you tune out for. You like, and like you're just like there's moments where you're just like gently swaying on your feet, trying to remember what's going on, and it's rough. It is rough.
You broke Rami. I've seen you've been using apps or something, Rami, to help with prayer.
I know how to, because prayer in Islam is a lot more straightforward than a lot of people think. If you can remember like 20 sentences, you can technically do every prayer that you need to do for your entire life. Mm-hmm. Like that's it. It's not super complex, but you can do to make it a time metaphor, you can do optional difficulty modifiers. So you can just remember like these 20 sentences, or you can do a prayer that's like 25 pages.
So you don't go get the shackles before you fight Margit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Tarawih prayer is during Ramadan in a lot of in pretty much every mosque they try to do a prayer with the entire Quran, effectively from start to finish, which is pretty intense. And near the start, just nothing happens because the start of the Quran is the longest surahs.
Yeah.
So you just go into the mosque and they just stand still while somebody prays a surah that you don't remember probably. Or like not fully remember or never really memorize in some cases. They just kind of stand there for like, what is it? Like, Bara is like half an hour or something?
Yeah, there's some that are like really, really long where you're like...
It honestly depends on the imam. If some of them are really milking it, then like you're there for 40 minutes.
I had one who was like, bro, I've got the best voice and everyone's going to hear it. And like, he's like...
he monologued it.
He was like putting in, like he's like extending notes for a really long time. And it's you're like, bro, come on. But then as you get towards the end, you start picking up, or you reach the point where it's a lot of the surahs or the passages that you know off by heart. And like you have, because you've been reading them since you're a kid, and then you start getting in a rhythm where you're like, I know exactly when I get to go into the next position, and I can like stretch my legs a bit, and I know exactly how this is going to end. It's real good. But these days it's been kind of interesting because I haven't been going to Tarawih as much for the last couple of years because of COVID, and it's been it's weird where every fast doesn't feel complete in a way, but also you have to kind of just grapple with the idea that this is how it needs to be for a really long time. And like, I know that from my local mosques, like, I'm going to be honest with you, religious people, they are like the super spreaders of the last 2 years. Like, because they're like, no, I don't matter. It doesn't matter to me. I'm still going to.
A lot of those churches out in Florida.
Yeah, a lot of churches, a lot of mosques. Like, I remember like COVID was kicking everyone's ass, like in the heat of it. And people were like, yeah, I'm just going to the mosque. And I was like, are you now? You are like 95 years old. Like, are you sure you should be doing that? And they're like, yes, God will protect me. I was like, God don't protect people against idiots. That's all I'm saying. Good luck, man.
God doesn't tell you to cross the road with your eyes closed.
Yes, like, exactly.
Look left, look right.
Yeah.
But so we're doing the worst sort of like jumping from so at the end of when the sun sets, we do another meal called iftar.
Yeah.
And that one, everybody also kind of has a meal to break.
That's the one you keep napping afterwards by accident. In
Well,
Nuha's
you
case.
nap after every meal. Honestly, at this point.
Yeah.
So iftar is sort of like, and that's like a big one because that in a lot of Muslim countries, that's super communal. So in Cairo, they have like a table that's like, I think 1.5 kilometer, like
Whoa.
0.7 miles.
There's some, you can Google pictures of it. It's amazing.
That is wild.
I will Google
That's
pictures.
awesome.
Right. And it is a communal table. So people just go there. People bring food. Food gets put out. If you're rich, poor, doesn't matter. Anybody can just join that table, sit down, and have a communal meal. And it's like a really big celebration thing. And iftar is really meant to. It's kind of meant to be done together. Like if you can't do it together, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing in Ramadan that is like, if you can't do it or if it's bad for you, you have to do it. That's not what Ramadan is. That's not what Islam is. Like, if it's bad for you, don't fast, right? If you're sick, if you're elderly, if you're on your period, if you're pregnant, if like whatever it is, like then don't. Not like you don't have to, just don't, right?
Yeah.
But for iftar, like to do it communal is a recommendation.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will go out, go to family, like Nuha said, sort of like rotate between different houses to have iftar or go outside, and it
sounds awesome. Also, these
wild.
pictures, I looked up the table, are beautiful.
It is.
It is a large table.
This is actually the first year I've made a concerted effort to actually expand my Muslim community and people I know, and as a result have been going to iftars or hosting potlucks and things like that. And there's something about it where you'll be in a room with complete strangers, because one of the things I love about iftar is that like it's an open invite essentially. Like it is not like, hey, we don't know you. It's not no new friends. It's no, hey, are you a Muslim? Did you just move here? Maybe do you not know anyone? Come eat. It's fine. Like we're all going to get to know each other. We all have a shared experience. We all have some sort of shared belief and background, and we're going to just sort of have this cathartic moment at the end of every day together, and we're going to be closer, because of it.
Yeah, when I was in England, my local masjid, my local mosque, the headmaster there was the main imam there was my teacher. And his policy was everyone from the community is allowed, whether you're Muslim or not. So he would invite non-Muslims in. He had a very interesting way. I learned most of my best Islam from him. I also learned from my granddad. My granddad is like an imam too, but he's ultra conservative and doesn't know the difference between culture and religion. So So I didn't learn a lot of good things from him. He put me in that mosque because one of his friends were there, and he was like, he'll learn the same kind of Islam that I teach. But I very quickly graduated out of his class and went to my headmaster, the teachers who taught me primarily. And he was born and grew up as a Hindu. And then converted or reverted, technically, depending on your perspective, to Islam. So he chose to be a Muslim. And the way that works out better, because most people who inherit the religion rarely take the opportunity to understand it. But he came to it because he read about it, fell in love with it, and then began teaching it. And his policy was, anyone from the local community is allowed. So we'd have people who are Christians, we'd have people who are like atheists coming in, and like they'd sit down with us and have a meal, and we'd talk to them and just like hang out. We'd never try and tell them about the religion. They'd just be there and be like, yep, that's cool. And then he would encourage us, his students, to kind of take the food that was left over and create like little packages, and then go out to the local community and find homeless people and give it to them.
That's awesome.
So like we did that when we were young, and it was like that's the kind of experience that you want to get out of Ramadan.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, that sounds great. And I also love what Yusuf touched on earlier about, you say that you're trying not to react to people or lash out at people or whatever. That's essentially self-care. What you're doing is spending a month bettering your own behavior in a way that should last throughout the year. You're actually like internalizing your reactions to things and thinking about it in a way that I never do. Like, I don't have any time where I'm like, I should think about bettering myself. I just think I do it every day. But the fact that you have like a focused time to be like, how can I be a better human, is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something I always try to, honestly, like it's super easy on the first day of Ramadan, and it feels really good, and like you're like, yes, like I'm above it, I'm above the nonsense and the BS, and then life happens and hits you, and things start to get away from you. But I try every single year to just get a little bit better about remembering and like carrying that forward, because like that is we fast for a lot of reasons. Like one of them, and one of the ones I think about a lot, is empathy of it, of like, okay, you're going without for an entire day for a month. In theory, and hopefully that helps you build empathy for people who go without not by choice, and allows you to be more giving of yourself, and not just with food or money, but with your emotions, with your time, with your empathy, and just because someone does something that angers you, maybe you can just back off and try to see it from their perspective, or try to understand that, hey, not everyone feels the same way you do, and that it's okay. And to me, it's always a very contemplative month, and I always spend a lot of time reflecting. Maybe it's just because I'm not busy planning my next meal all the time, but it's I think that to me is what I try to take away every Ramadan.
Nuha, would you say you agree with that? Is it like the goal?
100% agree. That's like exactly the same way. Like, I've kind of been raised to like look at Ramadan. It's almost like a spiritual reset in a way. Like, you look forward to it, and then you realize like all the things that we've had and we've taken for granted, and you kind of like realize what, and be grateful for what you have. And there's like also the other aspect of Ramadan, which is charity, where we actually give a lot of money. We donate a lot of money to the Islamic communities around us, around the world. We have this thing called zakat, which is like one of the pillars of Islam, where we donate a small percentage of our earnings per year to charity, if you are able to. And that's something that people do, especially during Ramadan, which is like the month of giving, especially to the homeless and people who need it.
Yeah, the little care bags that Tom was talking about. We do those in Egypt. You can buy them in the supermarket, pre-made. They're just sitting near the entrance of the supermarket. You just buy them, and there's a lot more poverty and homelessness in Egypt. So you can just buy 3 of those bags and just give them to people. And it's just it's a good way of people sort of like taking a conscious moment to think about things, and whether it is empathy or community or family or thankfulness or discipline, because that's a part of Ramadan. Like, whatever it is that you get out of Ramadan, it is almost by definition sort of contemplative and self-reflective, because you're just confronted with yourself in many. Like for me, I run around a lot of airports. You just notice how much time you spend at airports going like, oh, let me grab a snack.
Yeah.
And I'll be standing in the queue to buy a snack and go like, and then I want to curse, and I go like, don't curse, because
Out of habit. Yeah, like Yusuf said, I do spend a lot of the time during the day thinking about when I'm going to eat next, like a lot. And yeah, you're probably right that when that's the thing that's specifically scheduled, there is a lot of time to think about other things you care about. I think about when I'm going to have my next coffee constantly. I don't think it ever disappears from my brain.
I think that one of the I was talking about this on one of my streams, but like I encourage everyone to try fasting, even just for a day, because you never truly value the ability to walk to your fridge and fill up a glass of water and just drink it at any moment up until you fast for a day and don't have any, because every single day, that first glass of water after you break your fast, you like the gratitude you have for it is like unbelievable. It's unparalleled. And then that when you have that moment where you're like, I'm so glad I can finally have this, your brain automatically snaps to, what about people who can't have this, who don't have this? And then that feeds into what Nuha was talking about, which is charity. That's encouraging you to like think about the world around you and the people who aren't as privileged as you are to be able to fast for a little while and then have the food to recover from it. And in fact, their life is one eternal fast where they just do not have the ability to eat and drink whenever they please. And then hopefully the idea is, I'm going to give to charity and try and help people around the world in those situations.
All of this sounds awesome, and I feel bad that I'm just drinking this nice lemonade. Right.
It's all right for some, isn't it?
It's okay. It's between iftar and suhoor for me. So
it's
I
fine
can do
for
it
two
too.
of you, and it sucks for the other two. I see that natural
good.
light bathing on Yusuf's face.
Oh yeah, there's still sun here.
Just in your mind
is it
going,
long?
challenge accepted.
Yeah.
This is a test.
Is it long days over where y'all are?
Yeah.
Because here in the Netherlands it's like 18 hours. I was talking to some friends that are on the southern hemisphere, and they're like, yeah, we just have late breakfast. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Well, so that's the other thing we didn't explicitly say. Rami mentioned because it follows the lunar calendar. That means it doesn't sync up with ours, which means that it gets about 11 days earlier every year. So when we were all young, it was in the middle of winter, at least in the northern hemisphere.
Yeah.
Which meant that you were breaking fast at 5 p.m.
5 p.m.
Yeah, I was eating iftar before I normally eat dinner, and I was waking up for sahur and just staying awake because it was basically already time to wake up. So it has since progressed earlier and earlier, and a few years ago it was in the middle of summer during the longest time of the year.
Blessed time during E3.
Yes, yeah.
The most blessed of holidays converging.
Yes, yeah.
The world's two biggest holidays.
Yeah.
Right together.
Yeah, bringing the two biggest religions in the world, Islam and gamers
And
together.
E3 and the ESA. So the days being different but it's still global. So there would be some people right now who have short days, kind of like what Rami just touched on. And then
Exactly.
in theory right now it's a little bit longer for you in California.
Yeah,
But
and if there are like weird exceptions to where like if you live super far north or super far south where it's 22 hours of sunlight a day or the opposite, 22 hours of darkness a day, then the idea is that you're supposed to fast the hours that they fast in Mecca.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So you're not beholden to your terrible time zone or anything like that.
Also applies to the International Space Station, according to a statement made a few years ago, because they now have Muslims in space, and it turns out praying towards Mecca and keeping to sun.
Oh, we're in
and lunar
space now?
cycles is really
We're in
hard.
space now?
We're not,
it's
Sam,
over
we're not
for
allowed
you
on
now.
airplanes,
The rest of the
but
world.
we are allowed in space.
It's over for you.
Airplanes.
Now. We've made it. I had no idea we've made it to space. You lot are in trouble now.
Oh,
So how do they pray to Mecca on the International Space Station when it is in constant rotation?
When you're constantly floating around and moving directions.
So
Here's the
apparently
thing.
they can just pray towards Earth.
Here's the thing. I
you
firmly believe that God has a sense of humor. So I imagine God, wherever this entity is just looking at them, trying to stay in one orientation and laughing uncontrollably at it. That's one of the things that I try and tell people is like, one thing I really hate, and it's something that I had in my upbringing, is when religion is taught through the lens of fear, which is like it's something that constantly happens non-stop. It is like the context of teaching religion is, if you do this, you will go to hell. And one of the things that I learned from my teacher, the Hindu who converted to Islam, was it doesn't have to be that way. Like, you can think of why would like this benevolent being, this God, create all of mankind just to keep an eye on you and trip you up so you ultimately burn in hell? Doesn't make any sense
Something
whatsoever.
done out of fear of consequence has no moral value.
Yeah, exactly. And like, for me, like, I always tell my younger brothers and anyone who like seeks advice from me about religion, I'm like, hey, don't be so uptight about it. Like, if you feel like in Islam or in Ramadan, like, hey, I don't feel good today, I don't think I can fast today, don't put yourself through it just because you think that you're going to go to hell. Just imagine that, this your God is very reasonable and it's like, you know what? I believe it. Like, it sounds like you're having a shitty day. Don't worry about it. Come up with some other way. Because there are ways to make up for it. Like, you can do it outside of Ramadan. You can fast. Or you can, I believe it is, you need to pay, you can give to charity the amount it would cost to feed a person the entire day. And that makes up for a fast. I think it depends on interpretation, depending on like where you're from and that kind of stuff. But there is a charitable element to it. So I'm just like, chill, man. Everyone relax.
I mean, and Tam touches on something that's also really important to understand, is that Islam is not one thing. There's many versions of Islam, and I don't know who said it, but it oftentimes really intertwines with local culture, and separating the two can become really hard unless you sort of get an outside lens and start seeing the differences. So, the things people break fast with, the exact times at which the sun goes under. There's like 4 major schools of calculating what time the sun goes under, right? The sort of rituals that go with Ramadan, the way countries calculate when Ramadan starts and ends, the local traditions when it comes to suhoor and iftar, the way we celebrate Eid, the foods that come with Eid, right? Like, some countries have like these very specific sweets. Some have, we don't even agree about whether our baklava has like what goes into it. Like, it like whatever it is, there's disagreements about it across the Muslim world. But that also makes it really wonderful in a really lovely way, that you have this thing that is your own, but you can also learn from these other people. And since I've been doing the Habibi sort of podcast with Arab/Muslim sort of focus, the things you just learn talking to people, where you're like, I thought I knew kind of what Islam was, but then you realize there's just there's 2 billion versions of Islam.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm on in that regard, I'm very close to Tam's interpretation of like, okay, it's a thing when for Allah in Islam they have like 99 names, and most of them are like nice things. They're like, like the beneficial or the merciful, or like those kind of names. So it's kind of like, okay, just chill. Like, Ramadan is not meant to. It's not meant to torture you or put you through a wrangler. It's meant to slow you down. Look at the world around you, appreciate what you have, understand that some people don't. Do that spiritual reset that Nuha was talking about, which for me is a huge part of Ramadan. And then when Ramadan is over, you actually kind of miss it. You just really miss, like, sure, you have the moment where you have like the sun is up and you have a glass of water and you're like, oh yeah. But like, after that, you're just kind of like, you miss it. I really miss it. It's gone. It's like,
oh yeah, he's right. I miss it, but also I very much don't miss it. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. I miss it from a spiritual perspective, but I'm also like, hell yeah, I can have a coffee again.
The coffee. It's really whether you drink coffee or you smoke. That really defines whether you miss something.
Yeah. I think the thing I always think about too is that similar to the doing something because you're afraid of retribution isn't morality. In the same light, I try to think of that in the same way of good deeds, and Tam said that double XP. You know, your good deeds count for more, and then later you get into Ramadan, they count even more so. And you know, when I was younger, I would, you know, like I would always kind of think of it as a tally game of like, okay, I'm banking up all these good deeds. I'm banking up all these good deeds. That's going to offset all the bad I've done throughout the year. And there are a lot of people who think that way. But I'm again, like it's like I'm trying, because you know, as Tam and Rami were saying, and you know, like I firmly believe that like Allah is like a reasonable like entity and being, and that like they do not, like they're not sitting there and necessarily counting check marks and tallies, and they understand if, you know, you did something without knowing. Like I was, for example, like I was at a housewarming that happened to have a lot of Muslims, and they, you know, someone ordered pizza. Turned out one of the pizzas had like pepperoni or sausage on it, and no one realized until after the fact, until after a bunch of people had already eaten it. And no one batted an eye. It's like the person who ordered it felt so bad, felt so terrible, was running around informing everyone, apologizing. Everyone's like, it's okay. You know, we didn't know. We didn't knowingly do this. We didn't, you know, knowingly eat pork.
No negative intent.
Yeah, exactly. And like that's always what I kind of try to go back to, is that like Allah is going to at least consider your intent. That like, you know, I intended to fast, something happened and I couldn't, or you know, I made a mistake, I forgot and I accidentally drank water. That used to happen to me when I was younger. You know, that like, okay, that's fine. Like you can make it up. There are allocations. Almost none of the 5 pillars of Islam, probably besides faith, are absolute musts. There are always ways, and it's, you know, it's if you can afford to, if you can travel, if you're physically able to pray, if you are wealthy enough to donate, if you are healthy enough to fast. There are all sort of asterisks to everything to accommodate. And you know, I've found my experience with Islam that it accommodates sort of who I've grown into and who I've become, and how I've viewed the religion and viewed it within my own personal morals.
Yeah, 100%. I think like the most important, I've always had these I've been in various situations where people have been like, why do you believe in this nonsense? And I'm like, well, think of it this way. I would like to hope that you think that I am a good person. Like I try and be a good person. I'm doing my best and I'm trying to help, you know, people around me, or at the very least you consider me a friend, you know, that kind of thing. And if that is the case, you have to also accept that everything that I am was shaped by my religion and my belief in that. So if you want to respect me, you have to respect that religion. And that is the way I feel like I've approached everything, or I've told other people like to treat religion, where it's like, look at the person. Like, are they a good person? If so, yes. You know, if yes, then that should be a reflection of how you should treat their beliefs and the belief as a whole. Because I know people now who don't believe in God, but they're like, no, I don't believe it. But I have a friend who is Muslim, who is super nice, and like I can only think good things about their beliefs because they are that person. They are shaped by that belief system, as well as, you know, their upbringing and that kind of stuff. But that played a major factor. And yeah, it's like what you said. It's like it's not a scary thing if you come at it with a kind of like a good heartedness and a genuineness to it. It can be something that's empowering more than kind of like disarming.
I don't feel like I have the authority to speak on this, but in my head, it feels like the operating out of fear of punishment or consequence constantly would just rack you with guilt. I feel like that would be a very negative way to live, and it would be very difficult for you to feel good about yourself in the long run.
Which, as Tam pointed out, there are a ton of people who teach the religion that way.
Yeah.
And I think that's often why a lot of people bounce off of it, or a lot of people that are raised in it end up rejecting it.
It's easier to teach kids. It's kind of lazy.
Exactly. Like negative reinforcement with you know, kids for some reason is
you
something.
Tell me Santa's not going to give me presents, I'm good all year. That's how it works. That guy's real, right?
Oh, in our religion, no, he got offed in the first arc of Islam.
There's a fatty fit about that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's also how I was raised. It was super strict for me, and that's like, you know, kids and whatnot. And I feel like when I grew up and was older, I realized like one of the 99 names of Allah is like the all forgiving. So he will, if you seek forgiveness, he will forgive you. And that's how we kind of move on and become better people, is because we don't have that guilt that you're talking about, Alanah. Like we don't hold on that. And that just helps us move on and just keep becoming better.
And treat each other better
So-
too, I think. Like if
Yeah.
you learn to be all forgiving to other people as well, it's going to make you a better, more wholesome
Yeah.
person too.
And even if it's accidental or you done something and you regret it later, you can still seek forgiveness. And like it doesn't have to be like a whoops, I didn't realize it. It could be like you did it intentionally and you were like, no, I should have not done that. And then you kind of learn from that. So seek forgiveness and you learn and you just become a better person that way. And Ramadan really does that, really enforces that.
I promised Rami that we wouldn't do this for too long because of the time. So I'm sure we could talk about this for days, but is there anything that anybody would like to add before we sign off?
I think for most, actually, two things. If you know somebody that fasts, tell them Ramadan Mubarak, just or Ramadan Kareem. It's a proper way of congratulating somebody with Ramadan. It means blessed Ramadan, effectively. And I think the second one, as Tam said, if there is some sort of communal iftar or a day that you can fast or something that you can be a part of just for once to see what it's like and to sort of see the joy that comes with Ramadan.
I love the idea of that.
Community.
You like sold me on trying to go to Egypt during Ramadan. It sounds awesome.
I need to go. I've never spent the Ramadan in Egypt.
That'd be awesome.
It's so nice.
The only thing I currently try to do is I try not to swear and I try not to send really bad memes to Muslim friends during Ramadan.
It is haram, yes.
Muslim TikTok is on fire during Ramadan. It is
good.
the greatest. It is the literal greatest thing. There was this video going around 1 or 2 years ago of a guy sitting in a car and then grabbing a Twix bar and like unwrapping it. And then he has one of those sunroofs in the car, and he just looks up and he goes, "Astaghfirullah." He's back to business. And then he closes the sunroof and then eats the Twix. And it is like the funniest thing I've ever seen. Oh, it is so good. It's just a mess. It's brilliant.
There's also like chefs, like Muslim chefs that they're like, I follow quite a few like chefs on Instagram and they're like, they make normal stuff. And then it comes to Ramadan and they're like, no, I'm going to really put you through this. And they like make the most ridiculous things. And you're like, you weren't going this hard outside of Ramadan. Why are you going this hard in Ramadan? You're just like, please chill. No one can eat any of this stuff.
That's actually my favorite thing. Sorry, I know we're going long, but like as someone who loves cooking myself, like cooking during Ramadan is so surreal kind of because you can't taste anything as you're going along. And, like you have no idea if what you're making
it's harder
is good.
To cook.
Yeah, because you can't taste it. And like
your
did I add
sauces
enough
could
of this?
be terrible.
Did I add enough of that? They could be. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like divine intervention or if it's because you're feeding a room full of people that haven't eaten all day. But the meals are always, the homemade meals always taste amazing.
Yeah, always.
Always have to put salt on the dish after you try it. It's always salt that's missing.
Yeah, it is always salt that's missing.
And even when you're cooking, like you can't even lick a spoon. You can't lick off like a wrapper or something if you like pull like a wrapper off a yogurt. You can't do any of those little things. Like you're about to do it. You're like, oh no, I can't. No, stop. You can't do that. Like the little things you don't realize.
And then the moment you realize you can't do it, you can't curse, which is extra. That's the extra. You're like,
There's that. If you're like me, you're so paranoid. Where like, there's that moment where you're having a shower and a little bit of water like goes in, and you're like,
"Oh,
does this count? What does this mean?"
Like spitting in the shower.
I'm exhaling constantly out of my mouth.
Toothbrushing. You're like,
So when is the current Ramadan expected to end?
On the 2nd or 3rd of May.
Okay.
Is Eid's prediction. And that same imam, that same sheikh, for most communities, is going to sit there and have another 35-minute monologue, the equivalent of a drum roll that goes for way too long at a party where nobody wants to know the big reveal. And then we're either going to hear whether we fast another day or whether we're going to just eat too much or have a really boring heat, depending.
Yeah, because that means that you can't actually prepare the meals for it to be over.
As someone who was planning on hosting a potluck, I've sent out a tentative invite for Monday, May 2nd, but it's like, it could be Tuesday, May 3rd.
Tuesday, yeah.
That's a hard potluck, Yusuf. That's a bit mean. You're like, bring food on this day? Maybe?
I know, I'm going to have to take an extra day off just in case.
Maybe. And worst case scenario, we all can't eat it.
Yeah.
Bring the food.
Fair,
We're just gonna sit there and stare at it.
But
we'll all wait 5 hours for iftar. And so,
we won't be able to eat it, but we'll be able to take some amazing Instagram photos
yes.
just like, throughout the day.
Alrighty. Thank you all so much for joining me. This was awesome. It's very nice to chat to you about it. Let's go with Juice. Where can people find you, Yusuf?
I am at Yusuf Magid on basically everything. Instagram, Twitter. Those are really the only two things I use. But yeah, at Yusuf Magid.
Nuha, how about you?
I am on Twitter. My handle is Nuha, not Noah. That is a story for another time. Mainly I'm there.
Tam?
I'm at Tamor H on pretty much everything.
And Rami's is technically... He's got his whole Zoom thing efficient.
THA_Rami or on Instagram THA.Rami.
They didn't let you have the underscore on Instagram?
They didn't let me have the underscore.
Devastating. Devastating.
Yeah. Someone on Twitter, I've been trying to get my first name on Twitter, and for the longest time it was an actual published author that was very popular. And like I was like, you know what, I'm never getting this. And then I checked randomly the other day and the published author is gone. Now some complete rando is squatting on it. And I'm like,
do you know Will Smith?
Not Will Smith. Yeah.
No, the communicator. He works at comms. Will Smith, who a lot of us know. The harassment he got after the slap.
Yeah. I feel like it's compounded because he is verified. Too.
Yes, he's verified, and it's at Will Smith. It's so unfortunate every time. But yes, anyway, happy Ramadan, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful time. Thank you for chatting with me, and thank you to everybody for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.